It happened just a few months ago. I work overnight shifts at a warehouse, so my sleep schedule is completely flipped. I'm usually asleep during the day and awake from around 6 p.m. until 9 or 10 in the morning. Even on my days off, I try to stay on that same schedule so my body doesn't get messed up. That night, I finished my shift at around 4 a.m. and headed home like usual. The roads were completely empty and silent, the kind of quiet that makes the world feel abandoned. When I pulled up to my house, I noticed a car parked right next to my driveway. It immediately caught my attention because I'd never seen it before. As I drove by slowly, I saw that it was an old black sedan. The windows were so darkly tinted that I couldn't see anything inside. All the lights were off and it didn't look like anyone was in it. Still, something about it felt off. I parked in my garage, glanced down the driveway again, and then went inside. The neighborhood I live in has a good amount of space between each house, so it is easy for anyone to find a place to park near wherever they are going. Seeing a car parked right next to my house felt strange when there were so many open spots along the street, but I brushed it off. Maybe someone was visiting my neighbors, or they had guests over, and that was the closest open space they could find. Before I went to sleep, I checked out the window again, just to see if it was still there. About an hour later, the car was gone. I didn't think much about it after that. The rest of my day went as usual. I slept until evening, woke up around 6, and got ready for work again. When I pulled out of the driveway that night, the car wasn't there anymore. I didn't even think about it again. Work that night was exhausting, and I couldn't wait for my next day off. The shift dragged on, but finally around 4 a.m., I clocked out and drove home. Once again, the streets were completely empty. But as I got close to my house, that same car was there, parked in the exact same spot as the night before. My stomach dropped. I slowed down and passed by it, trying to look through the windows again, but they were too dark to see inside. It looked exactly the same. Still, silent and off. After parking in my garage, I decided to walk down to the end of my driveway to get a better look. The air was cold and quiet, and the only sound I could hear was the crunching of gravel under my shoes. As I got closer, I thought I saw something move inside the car, just a small flicker of motion behind the tinted glass. It was quick, like a shadow. I couldn't be sure if it was real or just a reflection. My heart started beating faster. I stopped about 10 feet away. I didn't want to get too close in case someone was actually in there watching me. I stared for a few seconds, but there was no more movement. The car just sat there, dark and still. Before I went back inside, I pulled out my phone and snapped a picture of the license plate, just in case. I figured it was probably nothing, but it wouldn't hurt to be safe. Then I went inside. Like before, I checked the window later and the car was gone. It was weird, sure, but it wasn't really hurting me in any way. I decided not to let it bother me. I made some food, watched a bit of TV, and eventually went to bed around morning. The next evening, I woke up around 6 or 7 p.m. It was already dark outside, and it was raining lightly. Since it was my night off, I decided to take a walk around the neighborhood, something I often did just to clear my head. When I left the house, the car wasn't there. I walked for about an hour in the drizzle, and everything seemed peaceful. But when I came back home and turned onto my street, my heart sank. The same old black car was parked right there again, in the same exact spot, facing the same direction, like it had never left. That's when I knew something wasn't right. I slowly walked toward it, this time getting close enough to press my hand against the side window and block the glare from the streetlights. The car was completely empty. There was no one inside and nothing lying around that gave me any idea why it was there. It didn't make sense. Whoever owned it wasn't doing anything illegal, technically, but it still made me uneasy. Why my house? Why only at night? I went back inside, trying to convince myself it was just a coincidence. I grabbed my phone from my nightstand, which had been charging while I was gone. That ESS when I noticed a strange notification on the screen, a motion detection alert from my home security cameras. For context, I have a camera on my front porch, but it only points toward the door. It never triggers unless someone is literally standing right in front of it. I also have a few cameras set up inside the main rooms of my house. The alert didn't say which camera was triggered, so I opened the app to check. There was a 60-second clip saved. I hit play. At first the footage looked completely normal. The house was silent, nothing moving. I was just about to close the app, thinking it was a false alert, when something suddenly moved in the last few seconds of the clip. A figure passed by the very bottom edge of the camera. Quick, almost like a blur. Only part of their head and shoulders were visible, but it was enough to make my whole body freeze. The video was from the bedroom I was standing in right then. My stomach turned cold. The house was dead silent. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears as I slowly turned around, scanning the room. Every corner looked the same, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still there. That moment stretched forever. I didn't even breathe. Then I realized I couldn't just stand there. I needed to get out. I started walking toward the door as quietly as I could. Then right behind me, I heard movement, the sound of someone stepping on the floor where I had just been. I ran. I bolted out of the room and down the hallway, and that's when I heard the footsteps too. Fast, heavy, and right behind me. Whoever it was, they were chasing me. I didn't dare look back. I just kept running until I reached the front door. I threw it open and sprinted out into the darkness, heading straight into the woods behind my house. My lungs were burning, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. I could still hear another set of footsteps crashing through the leaves, but then nothing. Silence. Only the sound of rain and my own breathing. I grabbed my phone and called 911. When the police arrived, the black car was gone. Thankfully, I still had the photo of the license plate I took the night before. It didn't take long, only about 3 hours, before they found the car and the man driving it. He was in his mid-20s, and from what the officers told me, he looked completely out of his mind. They didn't find any real reason why he was targeting me, but when they checked his phone, they discovered dozens of photos of my house, and even pictures of me sitting in my living room at night taken through the windows. He had notes written down too, times when I left for work, when I got home, what lights were usually on. He'd been watching me for weeks. The scariest part? No one knows exactly how he got inside my house that night without being caught on more cameras. The fact that he managed to avoid all the cameras except one, even for a second, means he might have known exactly where each one was. It's terrifying to think that maybe that wasn't even the first time he'd been inside. Thankfully, he was arrested, and I was told I wouldn't have to worry about him for a long time. But even now, every time I come home late and see headlights behind me, I still feel that same chill run down my spine, like someone might be watching again. That night changed everything, and sometimes, when the rain falls late at night and the streets are empty, I still remember that black car parked outside my house, waiting in the dark.